What is a family? And how do you define it?
I think we weren't completely naive that there would be some stigma with, like, where's your dad and what's the deal here? We considered it, and we wanted to make sure that the kids knew this, this is who we are, and there's a lot of love here, and that's what helps families stay strong.
My name's Julia, and I was conceived using a sperm donor. All I knew about him was that he was donor 1317 from California. But this isn't really a story about that. This is a story about how I discovered my family, all of my family. This is my story, and sometimes I can hardly believe it myself. You're listening to My Very Extended Family on the BBC World Service, and in order to protect the identities of some of the people involved in this documentary, we are only going to be using first names. I grew up in Cleveland Heights, in Ohio, with my adopted sister Sarah and my two moms, Kathleen and Betsy.
We were 23 when we met. We were pretty young.
Kathleen, I consider it both an honor and a privilege to be the one standing with you today.
Betsy, Kathleen, from this day forward, your lives shall be woven of one design.
They were kind of trendsetters in terms of being the first lesbians in Cleveland who had 2 kids.
We'd gone back and forth probably for 5 years. Well, yeah, it would be kind of cool to have kids. And it's not like we could have a mistake baby. We had to really plan it. We both love kids. And Kathleen had no desire to birth a baby, but was thrilled to be part of the plan. So we were on board pretty much at the same time. And we had started that process and deciding how to go about getting the sperm when Sarah came into our lives. And so we kind of put it on hold for a little bit.
Kathleen and Betsy, the loving people that they are, basically took me under their wing.
This is my older sister, Sarah.
My biological mom was Kathleen's sister, and when I was young, my mom had a drug addiction, so she wasn't really able to take care of me, and Kathleen and Betsy, they were able to officially adopt me. And then when Kathleen and Betsy started talking to me about expanding our family, in my mind it was actually creating that family that I'd always wanted.
And expanding our family meant my moms were looking for a sperm donor. And in making this documentary, I got to talk to my mom Betsy about how she and Kathleen actually ended up choosing my donor.
So this is the questionnaire we got from the Sperm Bank about your donor. And the first question, he was answered by him. What are your hobbies, interests, and talents? And he says, I enjoy reading, computer programming, swimming, and spending time with my friends. I play the trumpet and piano, and am an adept artist. I also like math and science. Describe your personality and character. I'm very easy to get along with, and I'm a pacifist. I think that's the line that got Mommy.
I remember you telling me about that.
I forgot about that.
Oh, he was a pacifist.
That's why Mommy said this is our guy. Why do you want to be a sperm donor? Besides the money, which was definitely an incentive since I'm strapped for cash, I think that it would be a very rewarding experience. If I never have kids, then I would want to know that I've given that opportunity to another couple. Which option did you choose? Identity release. And explain why you chose this option. It may be interesting to meet my unknown child to see what effects environmental and genetic have played in his or her development. Kathleen was very insistent on making sure that we used the known donor program. As far as I remember, there were only 2 in the country at the time that we could, Julia could find the donor when she turned 18.
Hearing Betsy, it was like, wow, she went through all these steps to bring me into existence. Like, yeah, it's a process, and it's very on paper and doesn't feel very natural, I think, to a lot of other people maybe, but I'm used to it, and that's always what I've been told. And so to me, it makes me feel very wanted. If we could pass a message to the recipients of your semen, what would that message be? Do well in school and believe in yourself. Don't smoke, and try to keep alcohol to a minimum. Hold your head high, but be considerate of others. Perhaps one day we'll meet if this place releases my ID. Have a good life. Aw, that's sweet.
Yeah.
I remember one fellow answered this question, why do you want to be a sperm donor? That was the one he said. because I'm exceedingly smart and in Mensa, and I would like to pass on my seed. I mean, we almost puked reading that. It was so bad. Pass on my seed. I don't want my kid meeting this guy, you know? We were imagining you, even though we weren't quite imagining you, 20 years from now, 18 years from now, meeting this guy.
So that's where I come into the story. My mom, Betsy, gave birth to me with help from donor 1317.
I remember that day so clearly when she was born, hearing it's a girl, and I was really excited.
Julia, she adored Sarah. They would laugh together so much.
Can you grab video out of this?
I still have your shorts, by the way. But they're clean.
Growing up, I was a really kind of closed-off person, and I didn't really know how to share my emotions. Kathleen is a therapist. She was a therapist, and so she, I think, helped me to open up. And Betsy, we would ride bikes together, we would go on walks together, I'd help her cook. They just played very different roles in how I developed, I think, as a person. And I'm thankful for both of them.
Thank you.
What bowl should I use? It was kind of strange going to a school and all my other friends had straight parents. For a while, I think I avoided talking about the fact that there were two of them. But when I grew into high school, I think I really embraced how great they were.
I'm so glad you were able to come home.
I'm sad to say that my mom, Kathleen, died at the end of last year. But you'll hear that she's still an important part of my life, as well as playing a key role in this story. When I was 18, I remember her and Betsy talking to me about how I could contact the Sperm Bank to find out about donor 1317. But it wasn't just him I found, because, with my permission, they also released my information to the other 1317 recipients. That was 2 years ago, and that's where this story really starts, with an email from a stranger.
I think that we had known that it was coming, but I think she was nervous. Julia was still not quite ready.
So I was in my senior year of high school, and I worked really hard the first half of the year because college applications, and then when I got into college, I think I didn't work as hard. It's spring break, and I didn't go anywhere. Just relaxing and doing nothing. And then my mom told me that they'd gotten an email from a woman named Sandra. And I was like, who's that? I have no idea. And my mom said, Sandra emailed and said, hi, I think your daughter is my daughter's half-sister. According to her, that's what she said in the email. My brain was just, no, wait, no, what? But my mom said, that's your half-sister's mom. And so after she emailed, I looked up her name on Facebook, and I found a bunch of people, because I guess it's a somewhat common name, but I found the one that was a woman with a daughter around my age, and I looked at the daughter and I was like, okay. I remember looking through each profile picture and being like, okay, the fourth profile picture definitely looks like me. And I felt like I was making myself believe that she was my sister, and it was just like, no way.
My name is Carolyn. My mother, she's a single mom. She was 36 years old, wanted to always have a child, and she thought it's kind of now or never, so I might as well. And so here I am.
Looking at Carolyn, I almost couldn't believe that Carolyn was my sister.
Our mothers had contact, and I actually think that before she had messaged me, I had stalked her on Facebook, because usually my mom passes along the name. And so I'll look them up quickly, even if I don't have time to message or do the whole thing then.
I remember typing out that message and just retyping it and deleting things and trying to phrase it the best way I possibly could to not seem creepy, but also this is my first introduction to my half-sibling. And so I sent, hi, I think I might be your half-sister. My dad was a sperm donor, and then an emoji.
And I was like, yep, I think you are too.
She replied, yeah, 1317 from California. Thank you for friending me. How are you? Who are you? What do you like? I'm from upstate New York, 20 years old, and currently at school in Florida.
I'm also really excited when there's someone else who wants to be in contact.
So from that message, I knew she'd done this before because she gave me all her information and she wanted to know more about me. And that was like, wow, like I'm your sister. I couldn't believe that I had more family out there. I didn't know that I had siblings. I knew that I had a donor father. I think the first time that I realized that I could find more of my family, I think I was in the gym in my high school and my friends and I were all sitting together and I don't remember what we were talking about, but I somehow got onto the thought like, hey, what if I have siblings out there?
Keep in mind, too, I mean, Julia was born in 1999 in January. She was conceived 5 months before Google was founded. I mean, I don't think, it just never crossed our mind. We just thought, that's not part of the deal. We find the donor, she meets him, has coffee, thank you, and that's it.
And it was something I hadn't thought about that much and hadn't thought that it would actually happen. I'd speculated and I'd wondered, like, oh, what if one of my siblings just like it pops into my life, and she did.
I think that I tried to make a bigger deal out of things than Julia was ready for. Like, I would have said, okay, Julia, let's talk about this. And Kathleen would have just crawled into bed with her and said, hey, what are you thinking about?
What I was thinking was, I wonder how far this will go. And I didn't have to wait long to find out, because it wasn't just Carolyn that I found that day. Within a few moments of talking to her, she added me to a Facebook group chat, and one new sibling suddenly became 11. I remember just being in that group chat for the first time and saying, hi, like, I'm Julia. Nice to meet you all. 3 in Michigan, 3 in Massachusetts, 1 in New Jersey, 1 in California, another in Oregon, 1 in New York, and 1 in London. So it was kind of an explosion of family in my life. That's 11 new siblings. I remember at some point I remember walking into the kitchen and announcing. I was kind of reserved just because I didn't know how they would react, because it was like my family, it was like this other family, and they weren't related, and so I didn't want to be like, oh, like I have this new whole side of my family that's not you guys, especially Sarah. Just because we weren't biologically related, I didn't want her to think like, oh, I found other people who are related to me.
And I think that that was part of why she was a little hesitant even earlier on. She just wasn't quite ready to have a different family than Sarah had, I think.
So I remember when she told me, it felt like just an addition to her life and potentially our lives too, rather than competing for her attention or her affection. So that probably speaks a lot to her, that she's always just loved me so much that I didn't feel anything negative or fear. So I could hear it in her voice, and wow, that's a whole part of her family that she just got connected to.
Woke up around 8, slow morning. Now we're on the road to Chatham, New York. We're gonna go visit Carolyn. I don't know how to describe that moment, but it felt like a new chapter in my life, having this completely different side of my family. She's the 3rd oldest sibling, so I'm excited to kind of talk with her more.
Continue on I-86 East for 167 miles.
And we're passing cows and horses every once in a while. It's very America. We're on our way. I feel like I wanted to catch up with you more. I feel like you were one of the most involved siblings in the beginning. Like, you knew about a lot of us starting out.
Well, I'm definitely, like, I like to keep track of things. And
How many were there when you first met?
When I was little, there was just 5 of us, really.
What is it like, because I know me, like, all the siblings came at once, but you kind of grew up, like, meeting people.
I feel like it was kind of different waves. I think, like, the group of you all that kind of found out when you were like probably between 16 and 20 years old. Because there's like people that I grew up kind of knowing about, and then there's like this entire, like half of the group we just found out when I was like 18 or so.
Yeah. Your mom was the first person to contact me. So that was like the first time I was like, oh, I have a donor sibling. And it's you. I like grew to know more and more siblings. I realized that I was one of the only siblings who didn't know anything before that first contact.
So my mom was actually in contact my entire childhood with other moms from the group. And so at 9, 10 years old, our moms got together, they would talk, and we were like the kids sitting on the floor who didn't really know each other.
So meeting all those people for the first time, I think, was mind-blowing.
And it wasn't until I was 18 years old that I had the first meeting with a half-sibling on my own, and that was a different experience. And that really marked a transition for me.
I didn't know what I was stepping into, really. It was kind of uncharted territory for me.
The more that I've gone on this journey, like what we do share is that there is some sort of connection. We're like biological connection that makes us feel united as a group. And I don't really know how to explain that either, because I think that family is chosen. And so I don't know if I'm like choosing the donor sibling family, but I think that all of us really feel in it.
So meeting them and talking to them about all these experiences that we shared, and it was interesting to go from living in a community where all of my friends and extended family and neighbors and everyone that I knew had straight parents and didn't have the experiences that I had. But then I met up with all these half-siblings, and all of them had the same experiences that I had. These people that I hadn't known for the first 18 years of my life, and then suddenly did. Now, in case you're wondering, that word Carolyn just used was dibblings, or donor siblings. But at the same time that I was gaining this new type of family, I was also beginning to lose a very, very important part of the family that I had always known.
Kathleen and I, she was the kind of person that would walk in the room and light it up. That she just was full of light. When she was originally diagnosed with cancer in 2011, they did not expect her to live through that first treatment. And she wasn't hearing that. The doctor kept trying to tell her the statistics of how likely she was to live. She said, "Is there any chance I will live?" She said, "Well, of course." So then I don't want to know the statistics. And I am going to, if there's a 1% chance, I'm that 1%. I think she was just so determined to make sure that she was here for her kids.
I got a call from Betsy. I wasn't there because I had work and I was doing school. And I think she said something like, "Julia, you have to come home right now." And she told me why. And the next morning, I got picked up by family friends and driven home. And my mom was in the hospital. She got really sick. It was cancer. She got sick so fast.
She was just determined to have joy in her life, even when she was going through such a very, very challenging time.
My mom, she's beautiful. And she was just always in my life in the best way. Because when I first went to Chatham, New York, she was the one sending me off, she and Betsy. And she was the one texting me updates like, "How is everything?" And she was just always in my life.
She was just so strong. And the one physician who was a palliative care doc, he said, "She looks so good for someone as sick as she is." And I cannot predict at this point how long she will live.
And I have gained a lot of family. And that was like so much more than I would have ever thought it could be. But I also never thought I could lose such a big part of my family. And Kathleen's not replaceable at all.
Just on our own, the beginning part.
Okay, go. This is Julia. This is when we were on vacation.
Ready?
And she played the song. She learned, she taught herself to play the ukulele in the last 2 months and played the song for her whole family.
We all immediately start crying.
Yeah, that's cute. Love you, girls. Love you. Love you too.
There are so many different kinds of family in my life, and Kathleen had only met one of my siblings. It was George. She loved him. She said he was amazing and smart, and she saw him in me, and she saw me in him. And she was like, man, if that's one of your siblings, I want to meet the rest of them. And I really wish she'd gotten to, but I'm glad she met one. And I'm sure she would be 100% supportive of me because she always has been.
I'm George, and I've known Julia for 2 years. We went from talking about music and our different shapes of her ears and toes on Facebook online to throw ourselves into these relationships with strangers who aren't quite strangers at the same time. But already we have such a strong bond because we just are so comfortable sharing things with each other, talking things through with each other because we have this trust that's kind of was already established.
So we're on the road to meet up with 3 of my siblings, George, Mari, and Samantha. And I've met George before, and I haven't met Mari or Samantha. So apparently Samantha looks a lot like me, and she's never met any of us before. So I'm sure she'll be excited, and we should get there soon. My story continues here on the BBC World Service in a few minutes.
The documentary is just one of our BBC World Service podcasts. There are many others to choose from.
This is the Global News Podcast.
This is the Global News Podcast.
It's the most popular podcast from the BBC World Service.
These are our main stories.
The Global News Podcast brings you a truly global perspective on the day's events.
We'll start with Nepal.
We hear from Iran.
I'm in the main square in Sipakira.
And with correspondents located all over the world, the BBC can bring you local coverage of world events.
This is one of the poorest districts of Tehran.
Thousands of protesters surrounded Hong Kong's Beijing liaison office.
Many people here in eastern Congo still do not believe that Ebola exists.
Expand your worldview with the Global News Podcast.
I would never have seen that, but man, it's cool.
Subscribe by searching for Global News Podcast to stay up to date.
Now, let's return to the documentary.
You're listening to My Very Extended Family on the BBC World Service. I'm Julia, and if you want to see what we all look like, you can go to the BBC website. 2 years ago, the only sibling that I knew was my older sister, Sarah. But when I turned 18, it all changed when I discovered my donor sibling family. So at this sperm bank we're going to today, I really want to see the different aspects of the places that I come from.
So let's go this way. So this is our storage room where we have all of our storage tanks around the room, and in the storage tanks, that's where we store all of the donor sperm samples.
This is Donna Ritter from the Cryobiology Sperm Bank in Columbus, Ohio.
Inside, each canister is a different donor.
Wow. So how many different samples are in all of these combined?
Well, we probably have about 120, I would say, donors. This donor may be in this tank, he might be in that tank over there, and he might be in this one over here. So one donor's samples are not all stored together. That way, if one of the tanks goes bad, we don't lose all of that donor's samples.
How often do the tanks have problems?
Not very often at all. However, if you think about not only the financial but potentially emotional distress that the loss of a tank could cause, it becomes pretty much astronomical, even a small tank like this.
So you, as a sperm bank, what's your policy on the limit of a donor to donate?
If we allow a donor to collect 500 vials, that would be approximately between 10 and 15 pregnancies. We limit our donors to anywhere from 500 to 700 vials.
It's not what I expected. I expected to be some crazy, like, scientific, all these people with masks on running everywhere and kind of scary, but it's very normal, which is nice. It's reassuring.
All right. If we go down the hallway, this way is our collection room.
Oh, wow.
Basically just a sink, a chair. We try to have background sound just to drown out any conversation and that sort of thing that goes on outside the room.
And you have a stack of magazines.
We do, the proverbial stack of magazines.
I don't know if I want to imagine this part, but there's a wash your hands sign next to the sink. Very important. I always knew that I was donor conceived. It's something I share with my donor siblings. And in the space of 2 years, my donor sibling group has grown so much, from 12 to 20. That's only 2 years since my first contact with Carolyn.
Discovering a new dibling is exciting. This might sound bad, but at this point, sometimes it's just like, oh, it's just another normal day. Found another dibling. But I'm always like waiting for who the next person might be.
Love you so much. Have a great trip. I want to hear all about it when you get home. Mwah. Bye.
We're on the road. We'll be meeting up with George and Mari and Samantha. And I haven't met Mari, and I haven't met Samantha. And Samantha, she's just been added to the group chat.
In 800 feet, your destination will be on the right.
I don't know, I think we're still trying to feel around and figure out how we're family and the different ways that make us all a family.
What's up?
Good to see you.
Hi, I'm Mari.
Hi.
Did you see what I mean? I think they look so similar.
The eyes, yeah. Wait,
like
wow,
your
can
nose
you
and your bone structure. Wait, I think it's your nose.
Your eyes.
All right.
Too.
And your nose, yeah.
Happening.
Oh my gosh. So wait, how old are you?
Okay.
Okay.
You guys want to sit down?
Yeah.
If I blur my eyes on you, it's like looking in the mirror.
I think if you're just looking at us too, I think we'd look similar.
Yeah. When I first saw all of you guys, I can see it.
I still like, when I'm with siblings, I'll like stop for a second and be like, wait, we're not like friends who just met each other like randomly. We're related too, that's crazy.
My name is Samantha, I'm 22. I'm from Portland, Oregon. It's just me and my mom. She wanted to have a child, so she went to a sperm bank and it worked.
I'm George, I'm 22, and I am from Lansing, Michigan. I have a full brother and a full sister who come from the same mom and the same biological sperm donor as I do. And I have 2 lesbian mothers.
Hi, my name is Mari. I was born in Oakland, California. I'm 22 years old. I have 2 moms.
I think a lot of us are like computer science, math.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that we're concentrated in, and then a lot of things that nobody does.
Yeah, like there's like no business major.
Like a lot of it must be nurture because we all came from very similar households.
I kind of feel like everyone is kind of like pretty relaxed in their nature.
I don't dislike anyone.
Yeah.
Right,
Which
I
is
haven't met anybody
rare
like,
in like a group of people that
Random.
right? Like completely
Except
random
it's
people.
not at all. I've known that I've been donor conceived since as long as I can remember, really. There was definitely challenges here and there. I mean, there was a couple instances at school and things like that with people who wanted to say discriminatory things to me about my family, but in terms of having 2 moms or being conceived artificially, neither of those things had a negative impact in my life. In fact, I think that having two moms was a really wonderful thing for me.
I never really wondered about the fact that I might have these half-siblings, siblings. I like more calling them like sisters and brothers because I'm trying to get more